Hey, Coach Abel here from the Abel Body Experts, doing a coach 'em up on rest intervals. I have to say, one of the most frustrating questions I get on a consistent basis from trainees is how long to rest between sets. And of course, they're looking for some external quantification of that in terms of seconds or minutes, which is ridiculous. It's not what should be gauging, again, this quantification bias that exists in the industry. What you want to be assessing is your own subjective biofeedback in terms of work performance. In other words, you want to rest as long as it takes to subjectively determine that you can do the next set with equal or better intensity, equal or better than the previous set. So I talk a lot about this in my book, The Abel Approach. I'm going to read a little bit of a paragraph from there, and then you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. But rest intervals should be subjectively determined, not determined by the clock. So here's a section on rest intervals. I'm not going to read all of it. Almost every modern training program design book that I've ever read lists rest intervals that go by the clock. While this is essential for certain sports, it is the wrong message to put out in general for any program where the goal is to achieve physique enhancement in terms of leanness, body development, etc. Rest needs are relative and are also indicative of conditioning levels. There is no way that all trainees will recover at the exact same pace as hinted at by using the clock to gauge recovery. The quantification method of dictating, for example, 45 to 60 seconds rest after a training stimulus makes very little sense. Only a trainee himself will know his or her own internal recovery rates and times from said training stimulus. Telling them to focus on outside external cues is misleading at best, program destructive at worst. It is best to gauge recovery according to the goals of the program design. For strength and power, full recovery is suggested between sets. This does not need to be measured by the clock, but the actual biofeedback feel of recovery. And that's what biofeedback is. For metabolic power, a trainee should be instructed to work against recovery to achieve better conditioning that's so important to accomplishing leanness. More importantly, for more hybrid forms of training, targeted muscle groups can recover while training other muscle systems or movements. Therefore, the goal here is to train under incomplete recovery cues, recovering but not fully recovered, and oxygen jet and muscle fatigue. Again, internal cues are a good way of measuring this. So again, you're looking at things like oxygen debt and a subjective interpretation of your own readiness to go for the next set. The bottom line is to get people to focus on their oxygen debts, focus in particular on the intensity of oxygen debt as an indicator of working close to maximum workload capacity, and to gauge oxygen debt as a qualitative aspect of recovery unique to each individual. Full recovery, therefore, has nothing to do with the clock, but rather when breathing returns to normal. And more on the rest interval continues within the Abel approach. So again, recovery between sets is all about subjective interpretation and experience. The closer you get to maximum work capacity, the longer recovery is going to take because you've tapped into your body system. It's like if a football player runs back kickoff for a 100-yard touchdown, he's going to need a longer recovery than if he only had to run 50 yards and if he could go all out or not. And these are the things that kind of need to be gauged. So rest intervals, I really wish people would start getting it. There's a reason they don't, because they're bombarded by nonsense in the industry, the quantification syndrome, that everything is about numbers outside of the body, whereas biofeedback is what you really want to consider. So this is a Coach 'em Up on rest intervals. If you want to know more about program design and things like this, I suggest my book, The Abel Approach. And this has been a special Coach 'em Up, and I hope you gained something from it.